You're listening to the Jordan Lee Podcast. Welcome back to another episode. In this episode, I'm going to cover and do a deep dive around the idea of archetypes, what they are, why they're important, how they relate to business, brand, design, creativity, and how you can think about utilizing the idea of archetypes in your business, in your product, your service, your brand, in the way you express design and creativity and marketing and advertising and just the culture of the company into the world. So this is going to be kind of a look into that. I'm going to cover kind of the 12 archetypes in a macro level. And so we'll just kind of get started here. So first off, the archetype idea is really around this model or pattern that represents kind of the logos or symbology, usually found in story and myth, art, throughout history. And so Carl Jung is kind of the first person who really unpacked this. And so through his work, we kind of have bigger buckets of the types of archetypes. So through psychology, through literary and story, and then also through culture. So in psychological terms, Jungian kind of looking at this, we can understand this in story and through mythology as like the hero, someone who embarks on a journey. They go out into the world, they face trouble, challenges, they grow, and then they return home with a new understanding. Then you have the shadow kind of archetype that is hidden desires, repressed parts of the psyche, and then the feminine aspect or masculine aspect in men and women is kind of another archetype. And then we have kind of wisdom and guidance through these archetypes. In literary and story, archetypes kind of transcend story throughout time and space and history. So the mentor, the villain, the innocent, the hero, the outlaw, all of these things are kind of represented in story from, Disney stories to Greek mythology, to science fiction, all the way up to, film and TV. And I think culturally we're kind of accustomed to the idea of story, and we inherently kind of understand the representations of these archetypes in story as they play out. Now, in Hollywood and in writing and storytelling, it's kind of been studied and broken down that there's really like 7 different types of stories related to comedy and tragedy. So you have kind of your action stories, your love stories, your thrillers, your suspense, et cetera, et cetera. And so within these stories, we have archetypes. And so humans kind of understand the story and the symbolism of the story and what is happening through the representation of these archetypes. And so they represent different personality traits. They express themselves in certain ways. We're kind of familiar with that through story, but it also translates into the real world and our own lives. And we look at, who we are in our own stories, and what roles do we play in the lives of ourselves, in the lives of others, and in the lives to the world. So the idea of like the archetype, it really is embedded into a lot of large brands, large brand storytelling. And so when we look at the idea of a brand, I think there's a misunderstanding that like the brand is the color and the logos, the product or service, and the website, and kind of the choice of the veneer that gets stacked on top of creative decisions and business decisions. So This kind of transcends a little bit further than just that as far as what a brand is. It is really taking the foundational beliefs of a brand and expressing it into the world through a certain archetype. So, for example, like the brand Harley Davidson is very much under kind of the outlaw, rebellious archetype. Whereas like the Disney archetype is very much like the creative and kind of the innocent archetype. They encompass these personality traits as if it was a person in a story or mythology or a character persona, right? Like the collective group of the brand itself being nameless or faceless, mostly faceless, expresses itself into the world through a certain way. And so in the world of archetypes, we really have kind of 12 that I like to look at. There's variations, there's also sub-archetypes, and there's been kind of growth. But if we kind of look at the 12, we have kind of 4 quadrants of the 12. And so because of that, we can kind of unpack, the big 12 and, there's sub-archetypes and things there. But just to kind of cover it really quickly, the big 12 really is the outlaw, which is they want to bring social change. They're kind of provocative, and they seek to challenge the status quo. The next one is the magician. The magician archetype really tries to bring to life in interesting and kind of mysterious ways that everything is kind of magical and it can happen, and that tomorrow is brighter than today, and all dreams can come true if you just believe. And then the next archetype in kind of this quadrant would be the hero. And so the hero is kind of the savior and the redeemer of society. They represent courage, self-sacrifice, achievement, and they seek personal transformation, and they triumph over any adversity. And so in this first quadrant here that I've outlined, kind of the outlaw, the magician, the hero, it's really about leaving a legacy, and they're motivated by risk, mastery, helping people to achieve, and helping people overcome fears of being powerless. In the next quadrant, this section of these archetypes, the innocent, the explorer, and the sage. And so they really represent exploring kind of spirituality. They want freedom. They help people find happiness. And they're really about kind of being motivated by independence and fulfillment. So the innocent believes that life is kind of simple and simplicity is elegant, and it's the embodiment of purity and virtue. And so they're an optimist in everything that they do. They have this childlike wonder, free from corruption and cynicism. The next archetype here is the explorer. The explorer really doesn't like to be fenced in. They push boundaries. They want to discover new frontiers. They're very innovative. They're very ambitious. And they always want to establish their own independence. And then the next one is the sage, which is a seeker of truth. They value kind of wisdom and intelligence. They want people to turn to them for counsel and advice. They seek truth and clarity through diligent research, through rational thought, through logic, through academia. And those are kind of the 3 there around the idea of freedom and exploring spirituality. The next set is around pursuing connection. It's a very social set of archetypes. The 3 here are the lover, the everyman, and the jester. The lover is very affectionate. It's very beautiful. Desire for collaboration. They want to have really great experiences. It's sensual. It's nurturing. It's romantic. The everyman is driven by this sense of belonging. Everyone is equal. Everybody matters. They're kind of like the good neighbor. They always want to do the right thing. They don't desire to be heroic. They don't need recognition. And then the last one in this section is the jester. And it's really kind of not so much comedic, but it's kind of the idea of going against convention and using humor with that. And they are really sharp, really witty, very casual, and very, very social. And so the motivation for these three is really about belonging and enjoyment. They have a deep love for community and connection with people. And then the last group here is around providing structure, a desire for order, motivated by stability and control. The three here is the ruler, the creator, and the caregiver. The ruler is really kind of that leader who values power and control. They're confident, they are commanding, they want to be the highest status of leadership within an industry or within a tribe or within a culture or community. The next one is the creator. It's very imaginative, very much about expressing themselves. Very much a champion of design, creativity, aesthetics, really seeking innovation, really seeking imagination. And then the last one is the caregiver. And it's really about kind of selfless care, nurturing others, being compassionate, being generous. And they have a deep responsibility for everyone else and those around them. So those are kind of the macro view of the 12 archetypes that I really lean into, just based on kind of research and history and structure and Carl Jung's writings around psychology. And so we can kind of look at these and say, why do these matter and how can this help? So when you think about, your brand or your business, as far as like your mission, your vision, your purpose, your values, and then you think about your product, your service, what you're offering to the world, archetypes are really a way to be focused in how you express that into the world. It's really a way of how you can creatively resonate who you are as a collective business, as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, as a founder, and express that into the world in a very consistent way. And so when you have, if it's just yourself or if you have multiple people working in a company, it really builds alignment between the collective, but it also creates this sense of familiarity with your audience. So